Welcome back to the GJ Fabrication channel, guys. We're going to start a new workshop build, and this is Scott's XB Coupe. We're extremely excited to show you this thing. It's gorgeous. So we're going to make this short and sweet because it's going to be a bit of an episode and we don't want to ramble on. But we've just put a new engine in combination in this, along with a bunch of fabrication to get it to that stage as well. So we're going to dive deep into how we do things, how we receive the car, and everything we do along the way. So this isn't like one of our normal builds. It's going to be combined with the owner doing a bunch of work as well. So we're going to show you how we received it. So this car came to us as a full roller, just completely no engine, no transmission, has a sheet metal 9-inch in the back, full floater, and it has a set of Weld racing wheels. It's got the 17-inch V-Series up front and the Alumistar on the back. And it has some big boots on the back. Let's check them out. So these are 32 by 17.5-inch Mickey Thompsons on this. It is quite a large tyre. Now these coupes are known for having such a big wheel tub from factory, but with the tubs in this, now it can accept whatever tyre you want to throw at it. So that is pretty cool. So we're gonna utilise obviously the big wheels with the new engine combo and make this thing pretty stout. So we're at the stage where you're going to pause the video and you're going to comment below what engine do you reckon we put in it. So it's we're keeping it under wraps just for now, so you'll have to stay, watch what we end up putting into it. We'll give you a little tip. I'll give you a little tip. Whether it helps or not, whether that helps or not, I'm not sure. But this should help you a little bit more. That's it. That's all you're getting. So stay tuned. We're going to show you what we did from the start and where we got it to the stage of putting the engine in and making all the bits and components that come along the way. So check it out, comment below and tell me what you think. This has had a few different engines in it over the few years. So there's a lot of unnecessary holes and some bits and pieces that we're going to touch up and clean up. So come over and check this out. The car used to be engine plated, so we're going to be getting rid of some of the engine plate bits and pieces and some workmanship that over the years, hand to hand, just going to cut it out because we want to make sure it's done correctly and we don't know what's under the paint. So it's going to be a bit of a process taking things back, but we'll start by filling up all the holes in the end firewall, and then in the engine bay, we're going to bring things up to today's standards, and a lot of the rulings changed over the years. So the next step would be to clean the engine bay out, take back some of that paintwork to see what's underneath it, and then from there we'll take the necessary steps to start putting the engine in. We've got Lockie here just working on the coupe at the moment. What are you doing, Lockie?
I've pulled all the stuff out of the firewall and taped up behind it because we're doing a lot of sanding and removal of paint just so we can patch all these holes.
You've cleaned up around these brackets, what's that?
Oh, well they're getting cut off because we don't need them anymore.
And what's happening down there?
They're also getting cut off because they're also not needed anymore.
That's why we sand them back to get them all ready. So, happy days. Well, that's the first step of starting the coupe. So next we'll start making all the patches, all the sizes, and tacking them all in. We're just cleaning up a few of the patches. We're not going to town on this one, doing a full smooth engine bay and all that. One, obviously it still has paint on it. Two, Scott and Rod, they do a bunch of body work and paint and panel themselves. So the intention is when they get the car back, they're going to take it all back and paint it and clean it up and whatnot. You find a lot of things as you go, but we've got majority of the holes patched up that he wanted patched up. We've found some cool stuff, which we'll show you. But yeah, Lockie's done a good job banging all the patches in. We've got a few more we're going to weld up on the front here, and after that we'll just clean them back. And like I said, we're not going to a crazy extent because the boys are going to spend a lot of time dollying and getting the engine bay where it needs to be. So now we'll jump onto that, we'll fix a couple of bits and pieces for the engine mounts where we're going to be plating things, and then we'll get to putting the engine in. So like I was saying, you come across some creative work over the years, and we know the quality of cars that the boys like building. We've done a few of them now. We're going to get rid of some of the work that we know that's not going to cut the mustard. So down here we've come across a little patch. On the other side you'll be able to see, we've taken this skin off here, and on this side we're going to be doing a bit of much of the same. So we're going to get the chisel behind there and give it a couple of taps. Look at that. So no weld or anything, we'll just pull that back. Getting rid of it. It's not the end of the world. I know a lot of people get a little bit overwhelmed and get a little bit apprehensive when they see this kind of stuff. It's not that big of a deal. There's no rust underneath it, even though it wasn't prepped or anything. It means they just did a good work on their bog, I suppose. But yeah, we'll cut all this out, we'll clean it all up and get it all ready for the boys. And like I said, we're not going to be finishing the engine bay, we're only cleaning up the holes and stuff like that. The long story short of it is, yeah, sometimes when you're time poor, it's good to get all this stuff done prior to you jumping into it, so there's some things that you don't need to touch. So we're going to get back after it, we'll show you some stuff along the way, and we'll get this all done and get this engine in. A bunch of the holes and everything are filled up, and we have 1 or 2 of them left. We've come across... this car obviously used to be a race car. It had a big block Ford with a big block Ford. Can't forget the blower. But they had sections down here that were cut out for the pipes and everything. So we're putting that back in because we want a bit of purchase area for our engine mount. Because this was originally engine plated, they probably had no reason to have that there. But we do. Come here. It's that time. The engine, it's sitting on the stand next to the XB Coupe. If you haven't already, comment down below, tell me what you think it is, or wait until I do it and be like, oh, I guessed it right. Either way, we're about to show you what it is. If you guessed that it's a side mount blown LS, then you got it right. This thing is an absolute beast. So this engine was already previously in Scott's VE, and it was a proven car and it never missed a beat. So we're really excited to chuck it in this. Now I know a few of the purists are going to be upset, but you know what? It's not your car, so it doesn't matter. But this thing should be turnkey, drive all day, and never miss a beat. So it's all blacked out. It's got the Hoonigan filter covers on it. It's got the Holley high-rise manifold. It's all smoothed back and blacked out. So it does look the part too. So we're going to be banging this into the XB, get all the mounts sorted, get all those bits and pieces together, and then we can't wait to jump onto the rest of it. Engine's all in. Now we're going to be making some plates up for the engine and the chassis. Plates are in. We've got a plate on the chassis up here, and we've got a plate up there on the block. See up here. So now we're going to go make our bushes in between, and then Lachlan's going to be really loud on the belt sander. We'll be able to bang our engine mount in between here. So now we're going to be putting the engine mounts in. So this style of engine mount has a bunch of parts to it. So obviously we've got the frame, and then we've got the bush, which will be broken into a couple of parts. Got a steel bush inside, which is obviously for the bolt to locate. And then we've got the Nolithane bush either side to obviously insulate the engine mount so it's not a solid mount. So obviously it will be much stiffer than the rubber, but much better than a solid mount. So this engine mount's going to work, that this side here is going to go to the plate on the engine, and this side here we're going to have a stump off of it that goes down to the chassis rail. So you'll see those plates that we put either side. So these don't have a K-frame as such, like a Commodore or any other K-frame car. But yeah, we'll have our stumps coming up, and then we'll have our stumps off the engine. So when we're putting the engine in, we're able to lower it in position onto the stumps, put the bolts through, and then bingo, presto, we got an engine mount. So this is one we've already welded up. We're just about to take the bush out of this one, and we've got a steel sleeve that we're going to bang in there, so that way it doesn't close up or expand, and we'll bolt that up, we'll weld it up, let them cool down, and then we can tuck them in position on the engine. So we'll do that now. Engine mounts are all welded up and we've got them back in the car. So we'll jump under here and have a look. So engine mounts up on the engine, onto the chassis, got the bush and everything all in there. And now we're gonna jump on to a little K-frame, a little removable K-frame. We're gonna bang between here that goes around the back of the sump here in front of the steering. So what we're gonna do is make this removable. So we've got a couple of connectors that we're gonna bang in that are 1 5/8 tube roll cage connectors. All right, so we're gonna bar all bent up. Now we're just gonna set it in place, see how it looks. Yeah, I reckon I'm gonna put a touch more angle on that. Probably take it out another 5 degrees to 30. So we've got the connector in it. We've changed the plans. It's gonna stay bolted up in the factory plates to the sides. So we're where it was originally anyways, where the plates have been put on. They're nice and easy to get to. We thought it was going to be a bit of an issue, but it's definitely not. So I'll grab this, pull it in here. They're tacked in place there. Sitting nice and flush this way. So level, perfect. So we're going to get that in. We'll weld predominantly all of it up as much as we can. Let it cool down in position, and then we'll take it off and do that last little quarter left of it. But we'll smash that out now and yeah, get it done. So we've welded as much as we can on the little K-frame mount that we're doing, and this little stump here is just so it's a jacking point. Most jacks have a little cup, so we can put it under here. If it slides back and forth at the track or whatever we're doing, it just locates a bit better. We tend to put that on all the diffs and all the cross members that we do, just to help out. But now we'll whip it out. We'll weld the top of both of them and weld this in, and then we'll get it back in to cool down in spot. While we do that, then we can chuck the blower on. Here's our engine mounts all painted up. So we've got some edge primer on them, just so they don't rust up, nothing happens to them in the meanwhile, while the car's getting the rest of the stuff done to them. So we got the bottom part and the top part. Obviously this goes on the engine, that goes on the chassis. We put them together. We showed you how the bushes go together, but we got a little nylon bush we've pressed in there, machined and pressed up in there. And then we've got our, northane bush, machined steel bush, so many bushes, that all go together. So we're just gonna bang some lube on that. That goes through the little nylon bush in there, and then urethane pressures either side. And then we'll piece them together, like so. After we get that together, we'll bang a bolt through there, and then we've got our cross member here. This will be the one that obviously goes underneath, got the jacking point under the bottom, and that'll be our little K-frame that we made for the bottom. This engine mount is already done. It's the engine crane's still got a bit of weight on it, so we'll get it all in location, hand tight on all the nuts, lower the engine down, fasten everything up nice and tight, and then we should be apples to jump on to the next thing. Everything's all back in, welded up, painted, bolted back up. Now, we were going to make this with connectors and make it removable, but it was really easy just to get behind here and bolt the little K-frame cross member up. So we thought there was no need for that stuff. And if you're going to be jacking it up all the time, loose bolts and all that stuff, alleviate future issues. So we've got it all in. Now we're going to bring it down, chuck the blower on it, and then we can figure out what we're going to jump onto next. This fits so good. Anyone doing this model chassis, Alice's fit, mint. So I know a couple of purists are going to be a little bit upset about that, but proof's in the pudding, she's mint. So now we're at a stage where engine mounts are in, trans mounts in, engine's going to be sitting where it is. Now we've got to fit up the intercooler, the radiator, air condenser, and a couple other bits and pieces. But first, we need to go chuck this big bad girl on. Here we have the supercharger. We're banging on the LS in the Coupe. So this is Vortex V7 supercharger, and the boys have sent that off to get some straight cut gears in it, which will make it sound beautiful. So these superchargers are rated up to about 1200 horsepower. It's got all the good bits in it. We've just received it back. The boys have got it painted. It's got an engine plate a cool chrome plated engine plate. That's done at the boys down at Electromasters, along with the spacers as well. So that is kind of cool. My first time really doing much with the black chrome. But so up next is putting this onto the engine, getting it all mocked up, and then figuring out where we're going to be running the cooler pipes. So once we get this in place, that'll dictate how far we've got from the front of the supercharger to the air condenser, the radiator, and the intercooler. So once this is in place, we can jump onto that. So let's go see if we can slap this in. All right, so we've come up with a little bit of an issue. So the blower will have some studs that come off here to hold it out in place, but this bolt here needs to be back there, and we've got a little bit of a clearance issue. So I think the inner guard's gonna have to come out, isn't it? What we're gonna do is just put a little relief here either side and just lay it in to see how much we're gonna have to bring it in, and no doubt we're gonna have to bang a panel in here. So we'll jump into it. We got our provision here for the blower now, which we're gonna have to probably lay in a fair bit. So I didn't cut the whole hole out straight away, just purely and utterly I want to see how much needs to cut out, what we can work with, what we can't work with, and all that stuff. So because obviously the engine bay is getting finished, we can work with what we have, but we got the blower plate on and we figured out that the spacers and everything for the blower that was supplied are to suit power steering, the original factory LS power steering. So what we're gonna have to do now is measure up everything, make some new bosses, get a couple of new bolts, because we're going to be running electric power steering in this. So we're going to have to put the pulley on and then make our own. So we'll jump on to making them now, and then we should be able to bolt the blower up and then start mocking everything else up. So that includes radiator, air condenser, because it's going to have aircon, and the intercooler. So already looking how tight things are going to be with the blower, and this being a V7 as well, it's a forward facing impeller. A lot of the chargers will have like a rear entry intake. This has a front, so we're going to be limited on room in the front here. So I feel like we're going to have to maybe make some modifications to the front and the lower rad support, this bonnet stay as well, and this area here obviously to try and get the intercooler in. So Lockie's just cut 2 hole saws in this area. Well, we're going to fab up a piece, but for now we just want to make the cutout, so when we put the blower in, we can do all the cooler piping and everything like that, and we know this section we can replace and make a nice tin work spot, but we want to work with cutting the shape out that we need and then work it from there. So we'll jump back into it once we cut all this up. Blower's all on. Like mint. Something about side mount blowers, they're just cool. So we have the little bit of a cutout here where it's heading, but we need to make a bit more room. So intake pipe and everything's going to be good, but we can't pull that up any further because if we do, it's going to touch. So we need to mark it, trim a bit more out of here, and a little bit more around that boss there. Can't really see too good in there, but we're going to trim it up so then we can start making the piece that goes around it, because we're not going to have an open cavity because that's just silly and looks unfinished. So we'll make all of the steel work come around the blower from the back side, which I'll see if you can see in here. From the back. And then the only thing that'll be going through the guard will be the intake pipe, but we'll make that nice, and that'll have a plasma clamp on it coming around to the cooler at the front. So we'll trim this up and get that all marked out so we can actually put, or at least have a template for the finished piece that we're going to be putting in it. So the blower's back in. We've got that back in place. And we've made the cutout. Now we've just cut a bit off the front cover of the blower, so we can pop this in and start mocking this up. And we will just have to cut out a bit more because the engine will move a little bit. Not too much with the style of engine mounts we've put in, but it will move. So what we're going to do is cut a little bit more around here But all in all, we're ready to tack this back in place. So we'll get it nice and flush, tack that back in place, and then we should be able to jump on to getting the intercooler in, and we should have the first step of this, which would be coming into the guard, and then we'll jump on to putting a plasma clamp on the other side of it, which obviously we need to make sure it fits, and happy days. Alright, so we've got it cut out, it's all tucked in, it's all nice and flush. So this is where we're gonna leave it until we get everything else put in. We're gonna put a piece that goes around the back here and kind of has a bit of shape to it. In here, in there, a bit better. So once we've got all that sat in place, we'll fit the rest of this cool stuff in. Let's check the trans mount out. So we have the trans mount all in. We've used the one that was already in the car. Like we said, it had a different engine combination in it, but it had a big tag off the back because the transmission sat further back. This one ended up being pretty much bang on, where you can see right where we needed the trans mount. So what we've done is just made it step up. You've got two caps that we're going to put on the side here, but we're not done with it, so we've just put it in for now so we can continue on with the rest. And we've got two crush tubes that we've welded in place here that go through the middle here up into place. So factory turbo 400 mount. And then we haven't painted it because you'll see we've cleaned up areas either side. We've got to measure up a tail shaft. So we've got our friends from GJ coming down. So once we get the tail shaft back and in, we'll be able to make a tail shaft loop, and then we can take this off and paint it, and yeah, it'll go back in for the final time. We've got Maddie from GJ Drivelines with us because we're at the stage where we need to bang a tail shaft in the XB. So Maddie's coming out. We've got a few tail shafts here. A few need to be balanced and measured up and everything, but we thought we'd get Maddie on board to show us exactly where we measure to and all that stuff, because it's a question we get asked a lot. Do you get asked a lot?
Every day, 40 times a day.
Yeah, so we thought we'd jump onto the XB and we'll show you where we measure to and what we're looking for along the way. So let's go check it out.
The biggest thing when you want to order a shaft, and for instance this car now has got a new engine that could make 1500 horsepower, so it's an old setup. We've just gone to measure it and gone, oh, it's got a small size uni joint on the diff. So that's okay. We can measure it to this diff yoke, but we'll have to remove it. It's built with a solid spacer, so you can do that with a rattle gun on and off. So long as we know our measurement from the trans seal to the center cap on with this yoke, we can then remove this yoke, give me a total length of this yoke, and I can work it out because we know what yoke we're going to put on it with a 1350 rear uni. So just before you do call us up, just try and figure all this stuff out, so we're not trying to do it on the phone and it takes 20 minutes to figure it out.
Going back and forth, and you also don't know as well. So I believe you're sorting something out online at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah,
so
we're doing like an online order. So it'll be a new web page that shows you how to measure. It'll ask you all the questions: what transmission, what engine, how much power, maximum RPM, what size diff, what size tyre, what you're doing with the car. Trying to make it easy for everybody that has never ordered a tail shaft before.
100%, and all that stuff's pretty important as well, because if you've got a car that's going to make 500 horsepower, it's a big difference to something that's going to make 1,000 horsepower. So I think the relevance of that's going to be what material and stuff you make it out of as well.
Yep.
But I think the main thing we're going to look under here is show you where to measure to. So a lot of people, well, even myself, I get asked all the time, where am I measuring to? So obviously we've got center of cap there. So all we do is we make sure that the tape measure is right on that surface there.
Yep.
Which will be right in the center of these two. And like we said, we're going to be replacing that.
Which is just center line of your uni cap. So it doesn't matter what size the cap is at the moment. We just go to the center, which is that flat face, and then we'll show you at the trans end where we go to as well.
Beautiful. So let's put the measuring tape up where you want it.
Yep.
Where you want it from.
The end of the shaft doesn't matter. We just want it to the seal or back of extension housing so that we can figure out where we want the seal to run on the yoke. On a manual like a TR6060 or T56, they have got a big long rubber boot. So we don't want to go to the back of the rubber boot, we just want to go to the actual seal or the back of extension housing, which is right there.
Beautiful. All right, so if, you hold that, Matty. I'll run this out.
I'll hold the dumb end.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's on the seal there.
Yep.
And then we're going to run this out, and we're going to measure that center of that cap just there. And I have 1490.
We'll write that one down.
Beautiful. So that's 1490. So what material at 1490? And this car's going to make around the, on a day-to-day basis, will be around the 700 kilowatts, 650 to 700 kilowatts. What would be, what material would you make that out of?
Depending on budget, so off the top of my head, this thing might turn it to 8,000 RPM maximum. So 3.5 inch chromoly would be perfect. If he wants to spend a little bit more, we could go up to 4 inch aluminium because he's got plenty of tunnel clearance, and this is at ride height. That's another thing. Whenever you measure it, we want to know where the measurement at ride height. So as it sits static on the ground is where we want it to measure to, not on a 2-post hoist or jacked up by the body. If it's on a 2-post hoist, you can lift the diff up with no springs in it or whatnot.
Wherever the wheel's going to sit. So
Yeah.
with this car here being a leaf sprung car, obviously you can see where the tyre's sitting there, but naturally when this separates and goes up, it's going to have quite a large gap on it, especially being a split mono leaf. So they actually have quite a large separation on them. So definitely don't have it on a 2-post hoist. But yeah, I suppose the next thing is to find out what one we're going to choose for this. So you'll have to stay tuned and see which one we get. But thanks, Matty, for coming out.
No worries, buddy.
So we'll jump onto this, put the order in, we'll jump online and smash that in, and happy days. We're going to jump into whipping this pinion off because Lockie's on his way back with a tail shaft and the new yoke. So like Matty said, because this is a solid bush, we'll be able to zap it off and zap it back on because we're not going to have the crush tube or anything in there like some do have. So we'll whip this off, and I can actually hear the ute pulling up right now. Hey, what's that? How's the timing? How's the timing? Oh, you can bang that in. So we're going to jump into that. We'll zap that out, and we'll chuck this big dog in there, and we'll show you how we do it. Quick and easy. All right. So there's the old one. Let's go check them out together. This is our new RTS billet yoke, and the one we just whipped out. Obviously, we've got a couple of differences between the two. Height being one of them, and second of all being different unis. So this is for a small size uni, and this is for a 1350 uni. And also this one's cast, and this RTS one is billet. It actually is a gorgeous bit of kit. So if you want the part number for yours, it is right there. You can hit up Matty and the team down at GJ Drivelines for this. So we'll bang this back in and we'll get a tail shaft in. Let's go. Nice. Feels nice, solid. Beautiful. Bang a tail shaft in. Alright, tail shafts in. Check that out. 3.5 inch chromoly tail shaft. No need for the aluminium one due to the power and everything that this is going to make. We're happy with that, but the new billet yoke is perfect, and the perfect amount of yoke slip here as well. So like we showed you earlier, that's how you measure up a tail shaft. So if you do it like that and it's not on a 2-post hoist, it'll come up perfect every time. So now we're going to jump into tail shaft loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to aim to obviously put a loop around the tail shaft, and we're going to tie that back to the transmission mount, because then it's going to be nice and easy to take the tail shaft out when need be. And if this thing were to let go for any silly reason, it's going to save you from cutting up your car, so, and possibly hurting you. So we're going to jump over the bender now. I'm going to bend up a nice tail shaft loop. Here we have 7/8 chromoly tube. So it is seamless chromoly because it's just what we use. And we're going to chuck this in our Speedworks tube bender, and we're going to bend up a nice 180-degree bend, followed by another 180-degree bend. And then with the green that we're going to leave on it, we're going to be able to make a tail shaft loop to the perfect size that we need. So let's jump into that. Alright, so that's our first bend done, 180 degrees. Now we're going to quickly check it in the car. I've actually already done it, so now I know what gap I'm going to give it here, and then we're going to bend the other half of it, and we're going to bend it just slightly over the top, and then we'll be able to cut them together, put them together, weld them up, and we got one bit of tube doing a tail shaft loop. With what we were saying before, with keeping a little bit of straight in it, we've put 60mm of straight in it before we start this bend again, which will give us our nice height that we want, and then bend it around. But we'll show you, we're actually going to put this a little bit in the bender. Then you have tail shaft loop. Keeping in mind not to slam the tail shaft that way, so you smash the back end of the pump out. You just want to gently take it off, push it forward a touch, and you can check out this tail shaft loop. Back up there. Now that's just going to sit there for 2 seconds. Just safety. Bang him there. Alright, so we're going to take this up here. So tail shaft loop wise, height, everything, that worked out really nice. And you'll see a big slit here, and I'll show you more about that in just 2 seconds. But I'm really happy with that. So we're going to make it about 300mm backwards off the extension housing back here, and we'll tie it back with a couple of 7/8 chromoly tube. But as far as shape, I'm really happy with that, and it's going to close up a little bit more when we pull it together, so yeah, stoked. We've had that gap, we've tacked 2 bits of angle onto the chromoly tube, and then we've cut a little slice out how we need it to be to make it even. So now we're just going to come in here and you can see it close up. Pretty much bang on. We're just going to give it a love tap so it's perfect. There we go. Spot on. We're just going to weld this in place. Beautiful. Now we can take our other 2 bits of angle off, weld the rest of it up. Happy days. So we've got our tail shaft loop all in position up here. So we've got it clamped to our little jig here to hold it in place, so it's nice and even. It's at the height we need. Now we're just going to make some bars that go from, cut some tube from here to the bottom and from here to the top, just to hold it in position. All keep in mind where our exhaust is going to be running. Let's jump onto them, and soon enough we'll have a fully functioning transmission mount tail shaft loop together. Alright, tail shaft loops in. Looking pretty cool. Now to take it all back out and weld it up. So she's all welded up, edge primed, ready to go back in. Alright, tail shaft loop is all in. So there you go, bit of shadow with this light, but you get the gist. Alright, that's enough for tonight. We're going to be jumping on to the bonnet in the morning. Going to be cutting some holes in the bonnet. So we'll get straight after that first thing. What we're going to do is we're actually going to, this is a bit of a luxury. You don't usually get this. So this had a big supercharger in it, and this is how they took it on and off. But we are going to use this as a template to bring some cardboard over to it and make the template that we need for our steel bonnet. So after we do this, we'll lay this template onto the steel bonnet, and then we'll be able to cut the hole to go over the engine and hopefully have a nice neat hole for the bonnet. Template's all sitting on top of the bonnet now. So as you probably would have seen before, this is purely and utterly for putting it into the steel bonnet. So now we're going to take some measurements. This being fiberglass, it's not going to have the exact same measurements of the steel bonnet. They are always different. That's not here nor there. It's just, they're never going to be the same product. Even every steel bonnet's going to have its differences. But where this template sits is where the engine's going to sit, and it's not going to move. So what we're going to do is we're going to bang some reference marks to the guards. We'll tape up, mark up where this is actually sitting. And then when we put the steel bonnet on, we'll get that sitting in position, we'll line it up, and then we'll be able to put our marks over to our template, put that in the exact same position, and then we'll be able to cut a hole in it. It's all cut up, got the template sorted. Now we'll grab this, chuck it on the steel bonnet, cut the steel bonnet up, and then we'll get it in place. So as you saw, it fits pretty nice. On this side, we've got the hole cut. It's nice. We're just going to clean it up a little bit. And then on the other side, we've got a couple of areas here, here, and here, where we're actually going to make some fill-in pieces, dress this up a little bit nicer, and yeah, make sure it's nice and sturdy so we don't have any of this stuff. So we'll make these fill-in pieces, weld them all up, just like that. We've got a white bonnet. So we did our template. We got that all happening on the orange bonnet, and you'll see our reference marks here where we've measured in and all that, and then boom, it's all done. So we've cut the bonnet out. Now we don't have the billet hinges going on it just yet, but we do have the guards and everything in position where we had the grill in. So we know all the gaps and everything are right, and it's actually sitting a bit lower, so we've gave it a little bit more room. So it should be primo. Nice little hole cut, nice and snug. No need for big cutouts. I'm not a massive fan of big square rectangle cutouts in bonnets and whatnot, so it's good to see when things come out mint. So now from here we are going to, yeah, we're all done with the bonnet, and we can jump on to putting the blower and everything back on, and fixing out that guard where we know we've got a bit of a clearance issue. So we're going to get the bonnet back off. The boys can send that over to a street glass, and Jake can get started on the reverse cowl and everything on that. So jump into the next one. Scott supplied us a Plazmaman cooler to suit a VZ. For most part of it, it's going to be the cooler we use. We're just going to modify it a little bit, probably cut the top row of the cooler off to get it under here, because with using VE radiator and everything in here and the air condenser and everything, it's gonna be tight. So we want to make provisions to get this cooler under the rad support in here. So we've trimmed up the stay, and we've actually trimmed up the little lip that was on the bottom here too, just to make a bit of clearance. So gained about, I think, 20 mil, getting rid of that lip, and we've tacked the edges. We'll have to weld that up and clean that up so it's nice and strong. And you're probably seeing a mark here as well. That's where we're going to try and bring the intercooler in. So we're going to jump on to cutting the cores out like we just spoke about. Once we cut those cores out, we'll be able to sit it in place and see if we can't get those intake pipes going around here and not interfering with the grill, the bumper, or anything else that's at the front here. And then we can start figuring out the depth that we gain. So let's start cutting some more stuff up. So we've got our intercooler here. You'll see this mark there where we've traced where it fits in the front scuttle, and then we've come in 10 mil to give it a bit of room to come in, because we've also got dowels down the bottom that have been welded on anyways. So these, not sure if we're going to keep them or not, but I don't want to take them off if we don't have to, so we're going to cut through here. But a couple of things to take into account. So when you're cutting a cooler down, preferably get one made that suits the application you're using, but in this case, you got this at a steel. So we're going to cut this right on the underside of a tube. So what we're going to do is actually cut this tube right down the middle, and then that way it's going to keep some sort of integrity in it after we, before we put the top plate on. So I'm going to cut straight down the middle of this, and then you'll see my texture mark goes like that. So what we're going to actually do is, instead of welding a cap on the end, we're going to cut that out, and we're actually going to roll the original tank around to make it shorter, so then we can weld that to the top of the header plate, which will be bang on that tube. So we'll cut this down, get it all in, and then hopefully it fits mint the first time and we don't need to cut it down again, but we'll get cutting. Hot little tip when cutting aluminium, because you can get a bit of friction with the heat and everything like that. A little bit of wax, preferably actual grinding wax, but candle wax, it all works. It just helps glide through it so you don't get any jittery, jaggedy, jumping bits. So we'll bang some of that on and we'll get cutting. All right, cooler's in, just mocked up, and it fits in there okay. We're gonna have to make some decisions on how we're gonna make this permanent. The radiator is just propped up there with a bit of timber and a couple of bits of tape holding it in place. We have a really nice air gap between everything, bit of clearance on the front there. It's not gonna be an issue for any of that, which is good. Still get this intake pipe going down and then across, so that'll all work well. But at the front here, as you can probably see there, we've got an issue. I'm not going to be able to get the cooler pipes through there. So what we're going to do is we're probably going to chop these clamps off, and we're actually going to make some 3.5 inch bend come out, back down and under there, and we're going to put the first clamp here and make this cooler more of a permanent position for multiple reasons. Multiple reasons being, one, once it's in, it's in. You don't really go to it unless you need to, and if you do need to, you're more than likely pulling a lot of stuff out anyways. But also, it's just going to be very difficult to try and get to these clamps behind the bumper and the grill and everything. So making the serviceability easier to take the cooler pipe out from underneath the guard will be heaps easier. So we're going to have another look, make sure everything's where it needs to be. The radiator will have to go down a bit more. It's only, like I said, propped up at the moment, because that will be a bonnet issue right now. And then what we need to do is get that blower in and make sure there's going to be no issues.
A few moments later.
We've got an issue. Doesn't fit. So we are going to have to come up with a fix. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. So back to the drawing board. We'll take this cooler out and see how much room we need for the VE style radiator, and maybe we'll have to get that in position and mount that, and then figure out what we can do with the cooler around that. There is a couple of different options we can. We're trying to optimize as much of the cooling as possible in regards to the intake temps. So we could take a little bit more off the height of this to make the bonnet stay, I'll make it come forward a little bit, which will gain a little bit of room up here, but let's get the radiator in there by itself, and then that will dictate how much room we need to make, because as it sits at the moment, that front cover touches the radiator and we can't have that touching there. So let's see what we can't figure out. All right, while Lockie's working on the grill, I've brought the radiator over and I've just got it sitting in place, just kind of sitting up on the rail there to try and see how much room we've got. Now it's sitting awfully close to that blower there, but we need to make some room, so I'm just going to take some measurements now to see. I'll probably end up cutting this tin work out to right out to this swage here, and then yeah, I'll cut it straight up and make a bit more room. These condenser bulkheads obviously need room in there, so no doubt we're probably going to have to follow my original line out here and trim that back as well to bring everything forward. We're going to be making a new mount at the front here and then bringing it right forward, so this new mount will come out and back because we've got plenty of room here to the grill. So let's go ahead trimming up some of these side pieces and getting after it. All right, so that's everything back together for the XB. So we've got the grill back in and the bumper. So we got it all back together after cutting out the room necessary for the radiator. We still have some clearance issues. So radiator cap still hangs out of the bonnet, or touches the bonnet, I should say. So that's a no-no. But at the same time, I know a few of you will be saying, put a different radiator in it, this, that, and the other. But after speaking to the customer, he would like to keep the VE radiator. The car that all this running gear came out of was a proven car. He never had it overheat and made good power and was pretty consistent. The only thing that's going to be different to that is the intercooler, which this is a better intercooler than was on the car originally. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all this apart again. We're going to chop the front end off and we're going to make a chromoly lower rad support, which is going to lower everything down and make more room for the cooler pipes. As well as lowering the radiator and making more clearance between the two as well. And it's not that big of a deal because the rear end's already modified. It's not that big of a deal. It's going to need to be twist tested anyways. So we're going to jump onto that, and then that way we're not going to have to modify the grill or anything like that. If anyone knows how much these grills are, we don't want to be chopping it up. So we have to jump onto remounting them, because we're going to have an intake there for the supercharger. So stay tuned on the next episode where we're going to do lower rad support and jump onto the rear end, new shackle points, fuel tank, and everything else in between, cooler pipes, you name it. So stay tuned, check it out. This thing is gorgeous, and before you jump onto the old comments, XC front end, XB Coupe, I'm aware. Not an XB front end, but I don't want to hear about it. We're here now. That's right.